Our first speaker is Giovanni Galvez. He is the product manager for Telestream Captioning and Subtitling products. His topic, Captioning and Subtitling for Social Media.
Thank you, Bobby. It's a pleasure to be with all of you today. I'm very excited to present here for the first time in SMPTE LA. Recently I was in a trip to New York and for another conference, and I couldn't help but notice people using their mobile phones and tablets to consume media on the go. And out of, I'd say I imagine somewhere between 20 to 30 people I saw, only one of them had headphones on while they were watching video programming on their mobile device. And the others were using captioning or subtitling to be able to consume the media. And that was a really interesting notion, because it really speaks to the importance. It's kind of a shift in the way we see captioning and subtitling for television, which was intended for the deaf and hard of hearing, or perhaps those who speak a foreign language, for folks using social media as a way to share and view content, or the captioning and subtitling is oftentimes the only way that they can consume it while they're traveling or while they're watching it and so forth. But when you do that, when you look at that from the production side, from the content producers, the distributors, the results may vary depending on the mechanisms that you're going to deliver to, okay? And for example, in broadcast television in the United States, we know that all the televisions and cable boxes are equipped with a similar technology to decode captioning data. And in Europe, we see some of that with teletext and DVB subtitling as well, as a 2031 as well, encoding. And so you feel pretty safe, because you can put it into your workflow, you can QC for it, and then you can distribute it, and you know for a fact that people that need that accessibility are able to take advantage of it. But with social media, it's more of a jungle. And the reason is because different engineers, software engineers for playback mechanisms, kind of cherry pick what they're going to support as far as captions and subtitles. So the same captioning that you're going to, say, repurpose from broadcast to social media is oftentimes not going to appear the same. You're not going to get the same user experience when you broadcast social media. In this example on this slide, you see that the same exact captioning was converted, and you notice that in the other social media aspects, the captions are actually blocking the lower third, right? And it's a bad user experience. I don't want that. So to be more specific, here are 3 of some of the popular social media distribution outlets. You see that if I take that 608 data, or subtitling data with the proper professional formatted data, and you put it to YouTube, there's been some extra work there from their engineers to be able to make sure it keeps within the same positioning and formatting that you're going to see it on television. Interestingly enough, they're the only ones that support properly the SMPTE 2052 specifications. You can actually upload a 2052, including roll-up captions, and you'll see it that way. You take that same thing, you can't even distribute it to Facebook. And in the case of Vimeo, that there's actually, that data gets thrown away. So all of that formatting and work that has been added to the captions or subtitles is gone. Now that could change in the near future, and perhaps if some people are here and they can look into this, that's going to be very valuable for broadcasters. and especially when legislation calls for the same user experience and to use safe harbor formats like SMPTE 2052. Okay, so here's just a brief overview of what they support as far as a format. So you can look at this in two ways. You can look at it, well, do you support positioning? That's the first question. The second question is, well, what format should I deliver it on for you to be able to accept it and so I can publish it without worries to your social media outlet? And you can see in the case of Facebook, they're only supporting SRT. Now, this is strictly for offline pre-recorded. I'll talk about live in just a second. But for broadcast pre-recorded, an SRT file is totally inadequate to preserve any formatting whatsoever. It doesn't contain positioning. It may contain some formatting like italics and bold, but if you take broadcast captions and you convert it to that format, you're going to get not the best results. In the case of YouTube, on the other hand, they've done so much work to support as many broadcast formats as possible, and including raw VANC. You could upload a transport stream with actual VANC information and it will convert it to whatever in-house format they have. In the case of Vimeo, however, they do support more formats, but the same file that I uploaded to YouTube that contained the positioning, like the SMPTE 2052, I uploaded that to Vimeo. The positioning was thrown away. And that, in my opinion, is not adequate for broadcast publishing. So let's look at live streaming and closed captioning for social media. This is the standard workflow. You have your baseband input, you have your caption inserter box. This is the same thing as you do with live broadcast to television. But in the live encoder, that converts your baseband input to an RTMP stream. You have to have the pass-through from 608, 708, and then you can stream that to Facebook Live and YouTube Live. From their perspective, because it's so commonplace, they will now read that 608 and 708 data and render it out as closed captions on their live video. It has to be, though, something that they're able to understand and receive. One test that we've done showed that oftentimes these mechanisms for live captioning to social media expect the roll-up variety of captioning that is very common for live news broadcasts and sports. But in some cases, that live feed may contain a different formatting. That live feed may contain pop-on captions, for example. Maybe there's some commercial spots or maybe some archived, edited spots within the live captions that weren't formatted for roll-up. In which case, we found that YouTube actually didn't like that at all. Their render engine just went haywire, and it wasn't until after the live video was finished, the playback then would actually render them properly. So it's still a bit, in my opinion, experimental. It's still not the same as rock solid as what the broadcasters are doing day in and day out to deliver content on broadcast and traditional cable satellite. There's another aspect to this. There are situations where a broadcaster that is strictly delivering to live social media, not to broadcast television, they just don't have the infrastructure. They don't have a live caption inserter, but yet they want to caption it. They maybe are perhaps mandated, maybe by government mandates versus FCC mandates or for broadcasters, where they need to caption live content. But they're just not having the encoder there, and the cost prohibitive for that is is kind of discouraging for them. So moving away from this, there has to be a way to actually insert captions to our TMP stream directly to the live encoder. And that's kind of like a different way to look at it, because you can't just do away with the entire broadcast workflow to do something like that. And the reason is because you're still going to have to hire a court reporter to remotely dial in to do the live captions. However, they can, in theory, directly dial into a virtual encoder versus a hardware encoder to do it, right? But it's unlikely that you're going to say, hey, let's just kind of do away with that and come up with a whole new protocol, and now no one's compatible with it, except for maybe one company or something like this. It has to be the kind of thing that's scalable so that everyone can use and utilize what's being done now to deliver to social media. All right. Just to give you an idea, back to YouTube and the amount of work they've done, this is a list of the kind of captions and subtitle formats that they actually accept when you upload to their social media outlet. This is extremely extensive. I would say you'd be hard-pressed even finding some professional captioning software that can support all of these. Particular one of that's noteworthy is the Lambda cap format, which is the basic file format right there. Although there's not that much basic thing about it. That's specifically used for Japanese subtitles, and it supports horizontal, vertical positioning, including Ruby text, which is very common for Japanese films. That's not even supported by IMSC 1.0. Well, except for the doing it with images like pings. It is proposed for IMSC 2.0 to support that specifically. But somehow they managed to accept that format and render it out for publishing to their social media site. Okay, let's move on. You get a little bit more, and I'm not necessarily a cheerleader for YouTube, but just to give you an idea of the perks that you get for publishing captioning to that social media site, is you get an actual interactive script as well, and search engine optimization. So if you're looking for a way to make your format accessible, compatible, and give you the same user experience that you're getting to your television broadcast viewers. In addition to that, you have searchability, auto translation. I mean, the list goes on. They've done so much to help viewers be able to consume content in a very systematic way, just by having the captions present when you publish to their social media site. But there's a different dimension to that, right? Not everyone's going to deliver to YouTube. And if you're a serious broadcaster and you're going to deliver to as many social media sites as makes sense, you're going to deliver specifically to Facebook, you want to deliver to Twitter, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe there's a new social media site that people are using, that your customers that you want to reach out to, let's say LinkedIn. Well, how do you deliver from your broadcast feed, assuming that the caption is already handled, the creation of the captions, the QC of the captions, it's ready to go to broadcast, and you want to repurpose that for social media distribution? Well, oftentimes what happens is you'll find that there's not one format that's compatible across the board to all the social media sites. And so what customers are doing, and not just customers, but a lot of people, even outside of broadcast, is they're doing burn-in subtitles. And that has become almost like the norm. And they just don't want to think about it. They want to burn it in, make it look the way they want, and it also makes it obvious. The other aspect to that is, let's look at it from a point of view of someone who's actually scrolling, right? Let me go to the next slide so you can see what I'm talking about. Let's say I'm on my phone, right? I'm going through social media, I'm scrolling through my feed, just kind of doing this, thumb finger thing. And I see a video of, a politician talking, it's not very exciting. It's not like what you would expect, like, dragons flying or like laser shooting, like it's not that exciting. And I'm not gonna stop and watch it unless something attracts my attention as someone that's consuming social media and have a very short attention span. Well, I did some experimentation there, and actually it took me I'd say about 30 seconds to figure out, on an average, when I went to a new social media site, how to actually enable the captions on my smartphone, okay? And oftentimes when people can't enable it, or they don't have it enabled, it's just discouraging. They're just not going to try. They're just going to be like, I'm just going to move on. I want to check out this other thing on social media. Having them burned in is a lot obvious. I mean, you see them right away. They start popping in and out. Maybe there's specific, based on the way that they've edited the footage, there's specific things that pop on that are relevant, say healthcare or taxes or something like that, in this case, the politician wants to get the viewer to stop and watch the video. So it becomes more obvious and therefore can help increase viewership just from having them burned in. The other way you could look at it is, what about if a video is too much of a commitment to stop and watch? And so what oftentimes I've seen is broadcasters, they will make something called an animated GIF, and now social media has that ability to support that right on your feed. But that adds a whole nother layer of complexity, right? Animated GIFs don't have any audio. They can only be maybe 3 or 4 seconds long. And like burn-in subtitles, what happens with animated GIFs is you need to compress the video. There's got to be a transcode to that video asset. And then another compression action to then create the actual animated GIF loop, right? Then the publishing goes. But there's benefits to this. First of all, there's short clips. They're more likely to be shared. It's looping video, so there's no need to press play, right? There might be maybe like an animated GIF icon if you've seen it in social media. And it's extremely low bandwidth, right? Much lower than watching like a 3-minute trailer. And yet it's extremely effective when you're publishing subtitles with this in social media. And you have to publish it with subtitles because there's no audio, as I mentioned. All right. Let's look at a different dimension now. The creation, okay? Let's assume you're doing promos and these aren't captioned or subtitled. And like most broadcasters, the promos have to be, they got to go out right away. There's no time to send them out, to get them done. And even if you've seen some of the examples I showed with the politician there, publishing subtitled video, oftentimes those are done manually in a nonlinear editor. They don't even go through like the whole nice workflow of broadcasters. And what we've seen now is a way to utilize speech-to-text technology to quickly create a rough transcript of that video. And specifically, the speech-to-text technology that lives on the cloud, okay? Not, the traditional thing where it's on-prem, you download it and, you're using that. It's a way to take the media and automatically utilize AI engine on the cloud to create a rough transcript. But then there needs to be a part in the workflow where you have to review those results, okay? Now, the previous speaker that spoke before me, he was talking about, AI and how that affects jobs. I can tell you that the straight results from speech-to-text are not the kind you want to publish. They're the kind you want someone who understands captions and subtitles in an editorial process, review them, and make sure that they're up to par. And then finally, after that, you still have to convert that. Speech-to-text is just text. They might give you timing, but it's just text. That's not good enough. That has to be converted to a format that is compatible with video publishing. And that's where we have all of our TTMLs and SRTs, et cetera, et cetera. So here's another part that when you're talking about high volume, I'm not talking about the one-man editor who does everything, including the voiceovers. I'm talking about in an enterprise setting. How do you publish to social media in an effective way? Okay, yeah, sure, I could, maybe if I had like one video to do, like a 5-minute video to do every day, just one, no problem, we'll have like your editor do it. He'll handle it, and he'll publish it manually. Well, that doesn't work if you're doing, 10 hours a day, 20 hours a day, and you want to scale that. It's absolutely not possible. So what do you do? How do you get it done? In a typical workflow for post-production and deployment of subtitles and captions, you have someone called a captionista. That's just someone that handles the captions. They're good at typing. They're good at formatting text for on screen. And they know how to export your typical caption file. And you have your video editor, right? He preps the show for them, provides them with a proxy video. You're not going to give the captionista an IMF package, CPL. He's not going to be able to do that. You need to give him like an MP4 or something simple that he can use to rewind, playback, and subtitle and caption. Well, all of a sudden, you get a memo and saying, we're going to start delivering to YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook with captions and subtitles. And as of next week, we need you to give us X, Y, and Z formats, and we need to somehow make sure that they, survive our whole QC step in publishing. Well, if you do that, and if you come to your captionista or your video editor with that, their head's going to spin. And more than likely, you're going to have inconsistencies, you're going to have bottlenecks, and you're going to, instead of being productive, you're going to have them sitting around scratching their head, trying to figure out what format they're supposed to do and how to QC it. So the best way to handle this, in my opinion, is to automate. They do what they do every day. That doesn't change. The captioners do the captioning, the typing. Whether they use speech-to-text or not is not relevant. They have to do the review and get it ready for broadcast as far as formatting. The editors do their editing. And then that can be whatever they do already for broadcast. That can be transcoded. Just like you can transcode a video format for the web, that can also be transcoded automatically to the many different deliverables for every single type of social media publishing. The person on the deployment side, he doesn't want to hear about it. He doesn't want to know about it. He just wants what's needed based on the requirements. And this also goes for publishing to other distribution sites, like say iTunes and Netflix and so forth. The format has to be correct. It has to be QC'd, and it has to be compatible. So that's my basic presentation. Now, I did write a paper that's more in depth, but I want to see if there's any questions now based on what I presented here.
If you have a question, when you come to the mic, you say your name and where you're from.
Hi, I'm Jonathan from CBC. And as a Canadian, we do have very, very strict standards regarding closed captioning. And the fact of having speech-to-text algorithms is a challenge. So how do you see in a typical workflow how speech-to-text versus your captionista would integrate and how they could blend together to make it more efficient?
Yeah. Speech-to-text, in my opinion, for it to be ready for prime time, needs to be trained. A generic model, whether it's for French Canadian or for English that's from Canada or for the US or for Great Britain, is going to be problematic with the type of content. You'll see a speech-to-text engine, their marketing will say, oh, we're 95% accurate. We'll throw a music video there. Let's say there's post-production houses. All they do is music. That's not going to work. They're not going to get anywhere near that. But if you take previously captioned shows, at least you can do that. Let's say I had the last season of my favorite show. The captions were done professionally. I can take those captions, turn it into a list of phrases and words, and then send that up to the cloud to get that trained. But even then, what I see the relationship between the speech-to-text and the captionistas, it's going to help them be more productive. But it's not the answer, it's not the replacement by any means. It's just going to help them speed up their productivity.
Thanks.
Any more questions?
Going once?
I just want to say thank you very much. I'd be more than happy to, if you want to reach out to me, that's my email. Be more than happy to talk to you about what I presented here and the paper on this about all the pros and cons of different ways to deliver to social media. It's probably too much detail to go into this presentation, but it's going to be published. Please take a look at it. In my opinion, the key thing about publishing to social media is the thing that every broadcaster wants, every producer wants. They want more viewers. By adding captions and subtitles, you can get to that. You'll be able to expand your market. Just in the United States alone, we've seen statistics that show that 48 million people suffer from hearing loss and can take advantage of captions and subtitles. So you multiply that by the people that just don't have access to audio when they're consuming media on the go. It's just an astronomical number. You're going to be able to reach those viewers by doing the caption subtitle publishing to social media.